Ranjanaya Charanam Yamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Ram Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Ram Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivrajaka Charja Ashto Ki Iskon Bibidam Jaya save the whole world should Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivrajaka Charja Ashto Tarasata Shri Maharaj Vankesha Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Gita Govardhana Ki Braj Bhumi Shri Vrindavana Dhamma Ki Navadip Mayapur Dhamma Ki Purushottam Chetra Jagannath-puri Dhamma Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gopremanandi Oh, glorious somebodies. Oh, glorious somebodies. Oh, glorious somebodies. Oh, glorious, Lord Shri Guru and Shri Garanga. Oh, glorious Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Krishna.
Very fortunate that we have this Machine Kavacha Prabhu. He is our deputy minister of ISKCON. Not only the DT worship is going on all over the world, he looks after Swagari and most celebration of worship. So, he said last time, ISKCON two things are very attractive. Because when you go to the temple, first thing is prasad, and next thing is the beauty. So, Prabhu is in charge of the second best thing in our ISKCON, which is the beauty.
Well, the prasad gets offered to the deities, huh?
Yes, so they're both related. So please welcome Prabhuji Vakita is loudly chanting. Hari-Bo! Hari-Bo! Hari-Bo!
Hare Krishna. So it's very nice to be back here again. I think I was here 2 years ago, was it? Maybe 2 years ago. And the temple room is much fuller than the last time I was here, so this is a good sign. It means things are improving. So I've been asked to read from the 9th chapter of the Gita. Thank you. Particularly text 26. So from that, I'm guessing you want me to speak about deity worship. Yeah. But 9th chapter is really quite an interesting chapter. The middle 6 chapters are the essence of the Gita. So and Prabhupada, he describes how they're kind of hidden in between the first 6 and the last 6 chapters. So really, the essence of Krishna consciousness is contained in these middle 6 chapters. So this last section here, we're reading from verse 26. So basically, from verse 26 onwards through to the end of the chapter, is how to serve Krishna directly. Because this chapter has a very interesting title called "The Most Confidential Knowledge," and the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is pure devotional service. And how we can actually do pure devotional service. So I won't just read one verse, I'll probably read a few verses, because up till about verse 29, I think. Yeah, I might even go to the end of the chapter, because there's some really nice verses here. And the last verse in this chapter, verse 34, Krishna almost word for word repeats this verse in the 18th chapter, just in concluding the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so we'll read Patram Pushpam Param Toyam. Patram Pushpam Param Toyam. Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. Patram Pushpam Param Toyam. Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. Tadaham bhaktipahritam. Tadaham bhaktipahritam. Asnami prayatatmana. Asnami prayatatmana. Tadaham bhaktipahritam. Asnami prayatatmana. Patram pushpam param toyam. Yome bhaktya prayachati. Tadaham bhaktipahritam. Ashtami prayatatmana. So, for those of you who don't understand Sanskrit, I'll read the translation. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. So he's starting his instructions to Arjuna here about how to actually engage in pure unalloyed devotional service directly to him. Because the previous verses he's talked about the nature of Krishna and how to approach Krishna, but now he's actually talking about the previous 12 verses, 14 verses, from verse 16 through to this one. He's talking about how to approach Krishna and the nature of Krishna, but now he's talking about how to serve Krishna directly. So I'll just read a few more verses, because they're all very, very intimately connected, these verses. Yad karoshi yadishnashi yadchidoshi yadashyat yad tapasyashi kunteya tadkurusha madapanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Shubha shubha farerevam mokshase kamabandhane sannyasa yoga yuktatma vimukto mamapaisasi. In this way you'll be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you'll be liberated and come to me. Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dvesho stina priya ye bhajanti tamam bhaktya maite te shuchapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service to me in a devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. And then text 30. Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sarareva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. So we see here Krishna's emphasizing the importance of devotional service, that even if we slip up on the path, as long as we remain engaged in devotional service, we're considered to be saintly. This is the purifying nature of devotional service. It's so powerful. It's not something of this material world. We often think, tend to minimize or just think it's like another activity we're doing. But because we're engaged in service to Krishna directly, and this is the whole point of these verses here at the end of this chapter, because we're engaged in service to Krishna directly, we're directly connected with Krishna. Krishna's not of this world. He's completely transcendental. So all the inebrities, etc., you experience in this world, they have nothing to do with Krishna. And as long as you remain engaged in devotional service, you have nothing to do with the inebrities of this material world. It's very much like Prabhupada would often give the analogy of an iron rod in fire. So we know the nature of iron rod, just like there's a metal box in here, right? A metal thing in here to heat the room up, right? If you feel it when there's no hot water inside of it or steam or whatever goes into it, it's cold, it's hard, yeah? All those types of things. That's the nature of iron or steel. But if you put that same thing in fire, like if you take an iron rod and you put it in fire, what happens to it? Huh? It becomes hot. But actually what happens is its nature changes, because it's not the nature of iron to be red hot. Its nature changes. It becomes like fire. So it has all the qualities of fire. It gives heat, it gives light, it can burn. And as long as it stays in the fire, it has all the qualities of fire. As soon as you remove it from the fire, it cools down. And if you put it in water, it cools down very fast. So Prabhupada would use this analogy because it's a very suitable analogy, because it's the same for us. As long as we remain engaged in devotional service, even though there may be some slip up on the way, because we've had so much past experience, so much past contaminations there, and these things may sometimes influence us, just because of the nature of the modes of nature. But as long as we engage in devotional service, we're considered to be saintly, and we're fixed. As Prabhupada says here, because he's properly situated in determination. If our determination is no matter what, I'll serve Krishna, then this is actually, it says Sadareva Samantavya. This person is known as a saint. Yeah. So just read the last 4 verses. Chipram bhavati dhammatma sashvachantim nigachati kunteya pratijanihi nami bhakta pranashati. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace, O son of Kunti. Declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Mamhi pata vipashrita yepi shu papayoneo yonaya striya vaishastata sudras tepi anti param gatim. O son of Prita, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, and Sudras, can attain to the supreme destination. Kim puna brahmana punya bhakti raja shayastata anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajashvamam. How much more this is so of the righteous brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary, miserable world, engage in loving the service unto me. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mamai vaishasi yuktaivam atmana matparayana. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisance to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So Krishna is giving us here the conclusion of engaging in direct devotional service to him, is that we'll eventually we'll achieve him. So we see here the relevance of these verses in particular in relation to the process of deity worship is, as we understand in different ages, there's different processes of deity of devotional service. It's explained in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 5, where I think it's Karabhajana Muni is explaining. He says, Kriti yad dhyayato vishnam tretiyam yajato makam dvapare paricharyayad kalotad dharikirtanat. It says Kriti yad, in the golden age, this Satya Yuga, this Jayato Vishnum, the process of achieving the supreme is Jayato, or Jaya, meditation, Jhan, to absorb the consciousness in the Lord. Now, of course, if we analyze this age of this process of achieving the Lord, it takes a long time. Just like we look at Valmiki. How long was Valmiki engaged in meditation for? Does anyone know? 60,000 years. Could you imagine that? Sitting down and meditating on God. I mean, it's very nice to meditate on God, there's no doubt of that, but for 60,000 years, could you imagine doing that? Kind of, you'd have like cobwebs hanging off your nose and things like that. Long time. Yeah? And we see, just let's be realistic about it. I mean, who's done meditation here? A few. Okay. I think we all have, actually, at different times. Even when we chant japa, it's a form of meditation. But could you imagine, I mean, who here can sit down and meditate for 1 year? I'm not talking about 60,000, we're just talking about 1 year. You think you could do that? Okay, you can't do 1 year. How about 1 month? No? No one can do 1 month? 1 week? You think you can meditate 1 week without any distraction, any disturbance, not eating, not sleeping, nothing? Just sit down and meditate for 1 week. Valmiki Muni did it for 60,000 years with no distraction. Hiranyakashipu did it for 40,000 years, I think. Yeah? Such was his power that in his meditation that an anthill grew up around his body and ate all the flesh off his body. There was nothing left except the skeleton and his life air. And he maintained, by his prowess, he maintained his body for 40,000 years. So we're down to 1 week. No one's volunteering 1 week? How about 1 day? No? Not even for 1 day. How about an hour? You think you can do it for an hour? Without any distraction? Without thinking about food? Without thinking about sleep? Not even an hour. How about half an hour? Maybe 10 minutes. We're getting closer? Maybe 1 minute? Yeah, even that's challenging. Just to sit down for 1 minute and not be distracted. To be able to just, like, I mean, any of the Brahmins here, right? No, when you're chanting Gayatri, you able to just sort of sit there for, 3-4 minutes and just get absorbed in the Gayatri mantra? There's always some distraction. Maybe half a mantra I can get focused. Yeah? But so we can see that in Kali Yuga, it's just not practical. This meditation is just not practical. And this is Tretayam Yajito Makai. That in the age of Treta Yuga, which is the next stage, the process of meditation, or the process of achieving God realization, was to perform yajna. Now, of course, many of you may have seen yajnas in the temple, the fire yajnas, when Yam Krishna Idam Nama Swaha. So you're offering oblations into the fire for the pleasure of Krishna. Yet we see in the Treta Yuga, just like, for instance, you know the story of when, I think it's what chapter is it? 12, is it? I think in the first canto, where Yudhisthira Maharaj wanted to perform the Ashwamedha Yajna after the battle of Kurukshetra, and he was installed on the throne. And so he looked in the treasury, and there was nothing there. It's like old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard, and the cupboard was bare. So his treasury is bare, just from taxes and fines, and that was all it was, but nothing special. So then he said, okay, we need some wealth to perform this yajna. So previously there was this king called Mandata, and he had performed some great sacrifice and left behind a mountain of gold, literally a mountain tip of gold. And so he found out about this from I think it was from Vyasadeva. So then he asked Arjuna, Yudhisthira Maharaj asked Arjuna to go and get this mountain tip of gold. So Arjuna went and fetched the whole mountain of gold, and brought it back. And it's not just like, a little pile like this. It was a mountain tip, if you can imagine. I remember being in Thailand many years ago, and they had a form of Lord Buddha there made of pure gold. And he's maybe about 4 or 5 foot above the top of this room. It weighs 5 ton, pure gold. So there are, some large quantities of gold still in the world. But yeah, so Arjuna bought this mountain tip of gold back so Yudhisthira could do the yajna. And then they had it fashioned into all sorts of implements, plates and bowls. And when you're doing a yajna, you have the large spoon, which has got a head on it shaped like an elephant trunk, and the small spoon, which is a little round one that's cut in half. This is called the shruk and the shruva. And so they're generally used for offering the oblations into the fire. So they were made of solid gold. And the little knives they used for drawing the lines in it, and the little hands and stuff, all made of solid gold. The yajna kund itself, and it was like these little ones you get these days in India, like about this big, so you can do a small yajna, so you don't make smoke all over the inside of the room. Solid gold, massive big yajna kund, probably about 10 foot by 10 foot, made of pure gold. Plates, they had the grains on were gold. All the bowls they had ghee in were made of pure gold, and not just a little, like 1 kg of ghee or 2 kgs of ghee. Hundreds and hundreds of litres of ghee, thousands of litres of ghee. They're offering for days. They're offering oblations into the fire. So all these bowls that contain the ghee were made of everything gold. And at the end of the yajna, it's described how the brahmanas were remunerated sumptuously. They were given so much wealth that actually they had to leave it all behind because it was too much to carry. So much was given. And then when they finished the yajna, what did they do? They left it all there. Just walked off and left it there. Do you think you could do that in Kali Yuga? A Brahmana will never leave his shruk and shruva behind because they're so hard to get. But they were gold. They just leave them behind. And and no one would steal them. They just leave them there. And that's what happened Mandata, because when he did his yajna, he left it all behind, and it just stayed there. No one bothered to take it. So much wealth there was in those days that no one was hankering after all this gold. And then we see in it says in Dvapare Paricharyayam that in Dvapara Yuga the process of worship is to do deity worship. The process of realization is through deity worship. And even we see with deity worship, the deity worship previously is very different from the deity worship now. The amount of opulence that was offered to the deities. I remember years ago seeing these books. There was a dynasty probably going back about 500-800 years ago in India, maybe a little bit longer than that, called the Bola dynasty, and they were kind of in the southwestern part of India, like below Mumbai, that area there. And the Bola dynasties was famous for their deity worship, and they used to make all this beautiful paraphernalia and jewelry for the deities. And I remember seeing the pictures of the paraphernalia. It was all made of gold and silver, very, very opulent. And then all the jewelry. I don't know if you ever heard. You know what a thing is called a Navaratna? Right, so it's like 9 gems. There's a central gem. There's 8 gems around, and depending on the arrangement of the stones, they have a particular effect on the body. The Kshatriyas would wear gems, especially on the upper arms and stuff like that, and with the sun would shine through the gems, and the gems would invigorate their senses and their nerves and things like that. And give them strength. The gems were very, very powerful, and that's why you see with a lot of gem settings, there's actually the jewel is open at the back, so when the sun shines through it, it has an effect. I know for myself, like I've been told astrologically I should wear blue sapphires, but they're very expensive, so I don't bother. But it'd be very good for calming the mind and stuff like that. So all these gems they have an effect. So they would make up all these Navaratnas for the deities, so they would actually have an effect on the deity, very, very calming for the deity and satisfying for the deity. But in this day and age, we have Sri Shivanitai here, and they have gold-looking beads on, but they're not made of gold. They're made of plastic, and there was some gold paint sprayed on them. This is Kali Yuga. Plastic is considered to be wealth now. Like I come from Australia, and you probably figured that from the accent, right? The money in Australia is made of plastic. As I said, wealth in Kali Yuga is plastic. Right? Who's got a phone? What's it made of? Plastic. Plastic, and that's all it is. And even the glass on the cover is a fancy kind of plastic. So it's just all plastic. This thing, plastic. There's, everything these days is made of plastic, and is considered to be the wealth. So, and then of course the last stage is Kalodad Hari Kirtana. That in this stage, the process of worship, or the process of achieving perfection, is the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But there's a problem with that. It's easy, but it's not. Just like, it mentions, there's a nice description in the Madhya Lila, chapter 15, where Prabhupada's quoting from Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha. And then in Jiva Goswami's explaining that, he said, yes, it's the opinion of Srimad Bhagavatam that just as the process of deity worship is not necessary, so the process of initiation also is not necessary. He said, but and as far as I have experienced, those people who are approaching me for initiation, their minds are disturbed by the modes of material nature, by the material energy. He says, therefore, deity worship is recommended. So he's pointing out that, yes, the process for this age is the chanting of Hare Krishna, but how many people can perfect themselves by chanting Hare Krishna alone? Like Prabhupada would sometimes say, just chant Hare Krishna and your life will become sublime. How many of us have been able to do that? Just sit down and just chant Hare Krishna. Don't check your email. Don't check your WhatsApp. Don't do any of these things. Don't get distracted by anything else. Just sit there and chant Hare Krishna. I'm only aware of one person or maybe 2 people who did that. One was Thakur Haridas, and we know that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he sat down and he chanted how many names? 1 billion names? I think it was like 16 years or something. He sat in his hut and just chanted Hare Krishna. So it's a rare soul that can do that. Therefore, we see that the acharyas have given the process of deity worship. At various times they give instructions of the process of deity worship, because when we engage in deity worship, it gives us the opportunity to interact directly with Krishna. Whether you worship a deity like we have here in the brass forms, or you worship the deity in a picture, or you have marble forms, or Shalagram Shila, or Govardhan Shila, or whatever. Doesn't matter. But you have this opportunity to interact directly with Krishna. And so, we can wake the Lord up. You touch his lotus feet. Agacha Uttotishta Shri Guru, you wake him up in the morning. You touch his lotus feet to put him in bed at night. Agacha Shanam Stanam Priya Vyasa Keshava. You ask him to go to sleep at night. So, you're the first person he sees in the morning, you're the last person he sees at night. You can feed him. You can bathe him. You can dress him. You touch his transcendental form. So just like the analogy we used before of the iron rod and the fire, if you keep the iron rod in the fire, the iron becomes fire. So just like we're engaged in touching Krishna's body, we're constantly engaged in touching his body, massaging his lotus feet, etc. What happens to us? Huh? We become fully transcendental. The material coverings are removed. So the process of deity worship is actually a very, very effective way of overcoming our contamination, this material. This is one of there's 5 primary benefits of deity worship. There's many benefits, but 5 major benefits of deity worship. And this is one of the more important ones, is how we can actually overcome the influence of material nature through regularly engaging in deity worship. But we need to understand that what the point of regular means. Srila Prabhupada, he often quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's prayer, Gurvastik, and says, Sri Vigrahara Dhana Nityananda Sringara Tan Mandira Majanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Chani Unjatopi Bande Garo Sri Charanara Vindam. That the spirit is just Sri Vigrahara Dhana, the spiritual master, he engages in deity worship himself, and then he engages his disciples in deity worship. But the important word here is nitya. It doesn't mean regular in this sense, it means daily. So it means like whatever deity worship you do it every day. If you have a deity at home, and whatever you do, you should do it every day. Prabhupada gave Malati his deities, his personal deities, and Malati was a little bit scared. She said, but Prabhupada, I don't know what to do. And Srila Prabhupada says, it doesn't matter what you do, just do it every day. So the thing is, when we have deities at home, then daily we need to feed them, we need to bathe them, we need to dress them and have an arati. That's bare minimum we should do every day. Yeah? Just like we eat every day, yeah? We have a bath every day. At least I hope you have a bath every day. Yeah? This is a standard Vaishnava thing. And actually for a Brahmin you should have at least 3 times a day. And then also you put fresh clothes on every day. I remember I knew this devotee who actually grew up a bit north of here in a place called Scunthorpe, and he was telling us how when he was a child they used to have a bath once a week. It was quite a standard thing back in the 50s. It wasn't even when I was growing up in Australia it was not uncommon. And then when my parents bought a new house, we kind of upgraded and we had a shower every day. That was a really big thing. But so, and what used to happen was like the mother would just pour a bath, and there was quite a few kids in his family, and so the first one would go, then they put a bit more water to heat it up, a bit more hot water in. Because I remember what it was like when I was a child. It wasn't like you turned the tap on, hot water came out of the tap. You had a copper out the back of the house. You had to light a fire under it and heat the water up. And I remember when we were living in one place, my mother doing that. That was the only place we had hot water, was in the laundry in the back, which was an outside room. And you had to light the fire and get the copper going. I think they used coal in those days, briquettes. And so the first person had a nice hot bath, clean water, etc. like that. The second person, you put a bit more water in there, and they're bathing in the water from the last person. Then the third, if there's 5, 6, 7 children in the family, you can imagine number 7. You're actually cleaner before you go into the bathroom when you come out. So and this is Kali Yuga. It's like people just don't really understand what cleanliness is about. So in devotional circles, actually in Vaishnava circles, then especially in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, cleanliness is given such a priority. It's very, very important, and it's a very, very important aspect of deity worship. And one of the things about doing deity worship is it trains us how to be clean, because you need to bathe before you approach the deity. You need to put on fresh clothes before your deity, fresh tilak, etc., before you approach the deity. So there's many, many rules like that about cleanliness. Manu Samhita gives rules, and Vishnu Smriti gives rules, and so many books there's rules about how to be clean and things like that. We want to do questions or something? I mean, I can talk for days on deity worship. So any questions or comments about that?
Question about can we balance leadership at home and in temple when we have service in temple also?
Yeah. Generally we find that Srila Prabhupada didn't encourage devotees to have deities at home. He encouraged them to focus on the worship in the temple. So, because what happens is it's difficult to balance. If you have deities at home, what will wind up happening is that, when the temple president comes, "Oh, Prabhu, can you do the midday arati?" "Oh, no, I have to look after my deities at home." It happens so often. Of course, if you have deities at home, I'm not telling you to stop worshiping them. I'm just, saying that if you're thinking of getting deities, then maybe prioritize the temple worship. Because when you have deities at home, then you get benefit from that. But not many other people get benefit. Maybe your family gets benefit. But when you have deities in a public temple, thousands and tens of thousands of people get benefit from that. Because they're coming to take darshan, they're taking the Krishna prasad, there's so many different things, there's festivals, etc., etc. Sometimes you can go to some of these temples on the larger festivals, and more than 100,000 people come to the temple to take darshan. So, if we're going to give anything priority, we give priority to the worship in a public temple, because the maximum people benefit. And, ISKCON is a preaching movement. Our business is to take as many people back to Godhead as we possibly can in our short life. Murli Mahaprabhu ki jai. For those of you who don't know, Murli Mahaprabhu, he's a saint, and he lives in Soho Street, and he's the head Pujari of ISKCON London. He's been looking after Sri Sri Radharani, or maybe they've been looking after him, or it's like a mutual thing, for about the past 17 years. So we're very fortunate to be travelling with him around the UK. Yeah. So, if there is to be any priority or any decision made like that, then give priority to the service in the temple. Of course, here it might be a little bit different because you don't have regular deities in the temple. So in those cases, one may have a cause for having deities at home. But I generally encourage devotees to have a picture altar, because with a picture altar you get the same benefit, but there's no obligation. Like if for some reason you have to go travelling because of your work and you're unable to do the service, then it doesn't matter so much. Of course, you try to maintain consistent worship, but it's much easier like that if there's no deities. Because when you have deities, especially shalagrams, things like that, you have to do daily, or like morning time, you have to do daily worship. You can't not do daily worship.
One more question.
Yeah.
So 16 rounds of chanting.
Yeah.
And deity worship at home. So 16 rounds of chanting is mandatory, which we
No.
need to do daily.
No. No. Not at all.
And so what is the minimum standard for deity worship at home? For those who have particularly Gurasthas, they are working.
I would say the minimum would be regulative principles. Yeah. Because if we look in India, for instance, so many families have deities. How many of them are chanting 16 rounds? And you'll find that quite a number of your congregational members come from that background. So then all of a sudden we're trying to put an ISKCON, kind of like imposition on them, where they've been worshipping deities all their lives. And we're trying to tell them something different. It's a little bit difficult to do that. We have to keep the cultural background in mind. That people who are coming from a Hindu background have already been doing it long before they came into contact with ISKCON. I think the main thing is to help them to understand, because oftentimes you find devotees who have come from Hindu backgrounds, they don't have much of a concept of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. So I think that's a really important thing to introduce them, how Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radhe Krishna Nahayanya, there's none different. It's the same personality. And if we can encourage people to chant Hare Krishna, that's definitely an improvement. Because without the holy name, it's like, as Lord Chaitanya explains, it's the only way to achieve emancipation in this age. No other way, no other way, no other way. You just can't do it. So, yeah, but regular principles, it would be the bottom line. Chanting Hare Krishna definitely would be a plus.
Those who have already DTs at home.
Yeah.
We have government IDTs.
Yeah.
Devotees have government IDTs.
Yeah.
Particularly initiated devotees. So what is the minimum standard?
As I was saying, you feed them every day. You have arati. You bathe them and dress them every day. But bathing and dressing, like a lot of people, as soon as you say bathing and dressing, people, that's too much. You can do it in 10 minutes, even less if you're quick. All it means is you undress them, a few conches of water, dry them, put on some clothes. Done. Yeah. You don't, and polish them like once a week or on a codicy. Srila Prabhupada did like to see the deities bright-faced. He said, I can tell by their bright faces you're worshipping them very nicely. So he liked to see the deities being very bright-faced. But in terms of elaborate worship at home, that's only for people who have a lot of time. And generally when you're doing deity worship at home, or you have an aspiration to do deity worship at home, there's so many different forms of the Lord. You can have a shalagram, you can have a brass form, you can have a marble form, you can have a wood form, you have a painting. There's so many different types. There's 8 different types of deities you can worship. And there's so many different ways you can worship these deities. But the factor that most people miss is like they see a deity, oh yeah, it's so beautiful, I want to take them home, But the thing is they miss is you have to look at how much time do I have. And then based on how much time you think you can allocate to doing deity worship daily, not weekly or monthly or yearly, but how much you can do daily, then you determine what sort of form of the Lord you're going to have. And if you can say, okay, I can give it 5 minutes a day, what form of the Lord do you think you should take? What form? Huh? Picture, exactly. But if you can say, okay, I've got maybe half an hour to an hour every day, guaranteed I can commit, what would you do? You could have a brass deity. Yeah? Brass deities are also good because they don't break so easily. Whereas marble deities, they break very easily. Wood deities don't break as easily as marble deities, but they do break. Especially if they fall over, they get knocked off the shelf or something. And the thing is, the fact of it is accidents do happen. I've experienced many accidents in deity worship. But you need to look practically, it's kind of it's just like children, like lusty people, they just want to have sex, and they couldn't really care about the consequences. But an intelligent person takes it from the other angle. Okay, can I look after children? If the answer is yes, okay, let's have children. If the answer is no, forget about it. We just don't do it. So you have to look at it like that. You have to look at it practically. Not that we just become, attached, like we got some sentimental attachment to some form of a deity or someone gives. I mean, devotees have offered me deities so many times. I just say no. I couldn't practically do it. Just I mean, you can ask Millie what our last few weeks has been like. I've been pretty, we met up on the 27th of May, and we've been flat out since then. Haven't had a moment to spare. So there's no scope that I could have had half an hour a day to do deity worship. We're in Vrindavan for 11 days teaching. So there's no scope. So I just made the decision a long time ago. My lifestyle doesn't permit it. As much as I do deity worship most places I go to, but my lifestyle doesn't permit me having personal deities. So I just made that decision years ago. I'm not going to do it. So the idea is not to become, sentimentally attached to the concept. Just think about it carefully, and look at, okay, if I were to do this, and this is sattvic thinking. You look at the consequences of your actions. Someone who's in the mode of passion just thinks I want to do it. Someone in the mode of ignorance doesn't even go that far. So for someone who's influenced by the mode of goodness, say, look at, okay, this is what I'm thinking to do. Now, what are the consequences of that? Okay, say for instance I take on, marble Radha Krishna deities. What does that mean for me? How much time do I have to invest in that every day? Or brass deities or whatever. So you have to look at it, or Shalagram Shila. You have to look at it. It's just like, I want to have children. What does that mean? It means for the next 20, 25 years, your life is on hold, and you're just looking after children. Like, remember that couple we met yesterday who were travelling up to Inverness with 2 children in a car? It's like, you can imagine, we're driving around a car, it's great, we just sit in the car, we read, we chant, whatever like that. 2 kids in the car, it means like, you forget about your stuff, you're just doing the kids' stuff the whole time. So that's what it means. So, an intelligent person, someone who's influenced by the mode gurus, will look at the ramifications or the outcome of their actions and think, okay, if I do this, this means this. You look at intelligence and think this, so if I want to take on deity worship, fine, that's great. What's the commitment involved? Then look at it from that perspective. Not just because, they're so beautiful. Yeah, but no one's disputing the fact that the deities are beautiful. Wherever I go, they say, aren't these the most beautiful deities? Yes, I agree. Everywhere I go, the deities are most beautiful. I go to London, they're so beautiful. I go to see Radha Gokulananda, they're so beautiful. I go to New Mayapur, I see Krishna Balaram. It's just everywhere you go, the deities are the most beautiful deities in the world. But that doesn't mean that I have the capacity to care for them. That's how we have to look at it. It's the same in the home. Like, if you have deities in the home, look after them. The same as, like, I'm sure it's the same here as it is in Australia. If you have children and you don't look after them, what happens? The government comes and they take the children off you. Yeah? Isn't it? Yeah. And if you've been really bad, they'll put you in jail. But we don't have the same thing with deities. But the thing is, like if you're doing neglectful worship, there is this thing, and I don't talk about this very often because I come more from a proactive approach. I don't believe in trying to scare people into stuff. But there are offences which will happen if we don't worship the deity properly. So rather than getting into something that can create obstacles in our spiritual evolution, let's just keep it simple and just take shelter of the holy name, come together, when we have programs here and do our worship in the temple. It's much easier. And then have a picture altar at home, so every day when you're cooking, whatever you cook in the house you should offer to the deities. Try to have an arti every day. And arti can be something so simple. It doesn't have to be like, I don't know what you do for your arti here, but usually an arti means incense, lamp, water in a conch, cloth, flowers, chamra, peacock fan, all this sort of stuff, blowing conches. If you live in a block of flats, you'd be really popular if you're blowing a conch at 4 o'clock in the morning. But it doesn't necessarily mean those things. An arti can be as much as offering a stick of incense. That can be an arti. Of course, if you have smoke alarms, you're not going to offer a stick of incense. It could be offering a flower. If you don't have a flower, you just get a fan and offer a fan to the deities. They can be so simple. They can be so, like you see, like everywhere you go in India. I mean, many of you have obviously spent time in India. Everywhere you go in India, you'll see the artis are different. Yeah. Like you go to Jaipur and go Radha Govinda temple. What is it? It's usually a lamp and water in a conch. That's the arti. Most of the Goswami temples are like that. You go in West Bengal, you'll see it's very similar to what we offer in ISKCON. You go in South India, it's usually just like a camphor lamp and sometimes a fan. Yeah? There's no incense or flowers. So everywhere you go, it's different. So arti is the item, not the individual things in the arti. So you can do so many different ways. And deity worship is going to vary according to time, place, and circumstances. There's a nice purport, Prabhupada, 4854. Narad Muni is instructing Dhruva Maharaj, I think. Is it Dhruva Maharaj? I think it's Dhruva Maharaj he's instructing. And Narad Muni, he says that the deity worship should be offered according to time, place, available conveniences and inconveniences. He said what may be convenient in India may not necessarily be convenient in the West. So you have to look at what's convenient. And we see, like in a lot of the old temples in India, for instance, they offer camphor lamps. Whereas we see more and more in the West now, they're not offering camphor lamps because they make everything black. Like if your temple's made out of black granite, then you're not going to notice if it gets black because it's already all black. Especially a lot of the old South Indian temples, they're all made out of this black stone. And if you touch them, your hands will come really dirty. But we find temples in the West now, because they're all painted and this thing and that thing, that they're adapting or they're adjusting. just to suit. So, you need to also adjust to suiting to time, place, and available conveniences and inconvenience. So, it's not like it's a rubber stamp thing and everyone should do it exactly the same. It depends on your situation, your house, whether you've got children, whether there's animals. If there's animals in the house, you're not going to have deities. If you're living in the house with meat eaters, you're not going to have deities. You might have pictures, in your room or something like that, but you wouldn't have deities in such an environment. So it just depends on the individual situation. But bare minimum you should do is feed them every day. And, if you have, forms like three-dimensional forms like this, feed them every day, have an arti, bathe and dress every day. But then if you have pictures, it can be less. Anything else? Prabhu? Sorry?
The benefit of a new guest and the people. Please explain briefly what is the difference between deity worship and idol worship.
Authority. It's authorized. Simple thing. It's just like Prabhupada would always use the example of the post box. So, like if you go to one of these, ER post boxes, they're painted whatever the colour they are. They used to be red. I don't know what colour they are these days. There's blue ones, there's yellow ones, there's all types of stuff, But you go to one of these post boxes and you put your letter in it, what's going to happen to the letter? As long as you've got a stamp and an address on it and return it, what's going to happen? It'll go to its destination. Why? Because the post box is like an embassy of the post office. It's authorized by the post office, so it has effect. But if you don't like to pay, how much is a stamp now? 10 or 11p? Somewhere? How much? 50p. It's a long while since I posted a letter in England, They're $1 something in Australia now. Yeah, so it's like, so 50p. If you don't want to spend the money, like if you send a lot of letters, you think, well, okay, I'm just going to have, I'm not going to waste money on these stamps. I'm just going to make my own post box and put letters in there. What's going to happen? The letter will sit there for 1,000,000 years. It'll never go anywhere. You paint up a box, you can make it red, you can make it look the same. But because it's not authorized by the post office, nothing's going to happen. So that's the simple thing, is because these forms are actually described in scriptures and authorized in scriptures. And Krishna explains that in the 11th canto, chapter 27, he describes the different types of forms that can be made. And he says that, that I descend in these forms. So because it's approved, because the thing is, the deity is called the Archa Avatar. So Avatar means one who descends. And Archa is the deity, or actually the form that's worshipped. So Prabhupada would sometimes identify Archa Avatar as meaning the mercy incarnation of God. Because in our conditioned state, we're very much covered by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. We cannot contact or perceive transcendence at all, in any way. We just don't have any awareness of it. So Krishna agrees to come in a form that we can interact with, so that we can interact with the Transcendental Lord directly. Therefore we can understand he is called the mercy incarnation. He comes just for our benefit in this form. The deity is one of the 5 incarnations of God, if you like. There's the Chatavyuha, there's the Vaibhav, Vilas. It's mentioned in the 20th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 5 different forms. So the Archa Avatar is one of the 5 forms of the Lord. So he descends in different forms for various functions. And the function of the deity is to give us the opportunity to interact with God directly. So he's very, the Lord's very, very compassionate, very kind. Yeah? Okay, anything else? Yes, Prabhu?
You mentioned regarding the home worship, a picture would be good ideally if you have this time. But if someone would like to have a deities made up of brass, gold, something like that, what would be the installation process that we would recommend? Would it be, Prana Pratishtha that one has to do, or just a Harinami installation would be enough?
Most people don't even understand what a Prana Pratishtha is. So why bother? just, put them, make an altar for them, nice place, clean place where they have their own facility there, whatever. You put them on the altar, you bathe them, dress them, have kirtan, invite the devotees, distribute prasad. Simple. If you look at Srila Prabhupada's personal example, as far as I've been able to understand, he only actually did Pran Pratishtha in 2 places. Out of all the deities he established in ISKCON temples, he only did Pran Pratishtha twice. In Vrindavan and Hyderabad. They're the only places I'm aware where he did Pran Pratishtha. Didn't put so much emphasis on it. You can do rituals if you like, but we see that Srila Prabhupada wasn't so much into complicated, costly rituals. And even there's a purport in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam where Srila Prabhupada is basically saying, we were forced to do these costly rituals because the Brahmins in Vrindavan wouldn't have accepted, or the caste Goswamis wouldn't have accepted this worship as being bona fide if we hadn't have done it. So it seems like he wasn't that much interested in spending huge amounts of money on a ritual. Okay, anything else? What's now? What's next?